Hi everyone, welcome back to the cottage. Join me today as I declutter and reset in preparation for back to school. So I am just finally now starting to come to terms with the fact that summer is almost over. I have been denying it and holding off for far too long. Some of you may even have already started school in your states. We are about 3 weeks away from our first day of school, and I have a lot of things I need to get done. And so today is the day I'm dedicating to getting everything decluttered and reset and ready for the first day of school. When it comes to back to school, there are 3 main categories I like to focus on to take a look and see if there's anything that needs to be decluttered or if there are any gaps that need to be filled. And those categories include supplies, everything from pens and paper to backpacks and lunch boxes. And then we have the category of clothing, so shirts, pants, coats, snow pants, if you're living in the Midwest like we are, I like to take an inventory of all of those things. And finally, I put shoes in a separate category, even though they could probably fit under clothing. Shoes are a little bit more specific, and I like to, again, do an inventory of those and see where we stand in that regard. And so those are the 3 groups I'm going to be focusing on today. So let's start out with the category of supplies. This is a big one. I recently got the list for our younger 4 for the supplies they need for their school, and our oldest son, who is in high school, doesn't have quite as many needs, but he also has a supply list that I'm going to need to be referencing. First, I want to talk really quickly about what I do at the end of a school year. So in the spring, when the kids got out of school, they brought their stuffed backpacks full of all the supplies that are left over from the year. I took everything out of the backpacks, laid it out on my kitchen table, and kind of categorized everything into what we had for markers, what we had for crayons, paper, folders, etc. And then I store them away in this cabinet in our laundry area. This is a cabinet that I use mainly for school supplies and anything school related. And so now today, when I'm thinking about looking ahead to what we need for the next school year, I'm going to be taking those lists of supplies needed and sort of shopping at the little store that I have in this cabinet first. So I'm going to now take everything back out of the cabinet, lay it on my table, and sort of get an idea of what I have and what I can mark off of this shopping list. If you've seen my video previously about meal planning, this is very similar. It's sort of a reverse shopping list, if you will. I have in front of me the list of things that I do need to have and to provide for my kids for their school year. And if I can cross it off the list by shopping the items that we already own, that's going to make the amount of items I need to purchase at the store so much smaller and a lot less overwhelming. I also want to note that I do take a look at the kids' backpacks at the end of the school year. If they have large rips or if the zippers are broken, I put them out of commission right then and there. And last year when I did look through them, all the backpacks seemed to be in good working order, and so I threw them in the washing machine, got them cleaned up, and then they were just stored away so that now I can fill them up with the new supplies and they will be ready to use this next school year. Over the years, we really have amassed quite a collection of items. Of course, some things get worn out quicker than others. I'd say most years I do have to buy boxes of crayons for at least a couple of the kids, but these markers, because they aren't used quite as often, at least not at our school, they have been able to be passed down through multiple kids over the years, and this has really saved us a lot of money. Notebooks are another common school supply that I'm able to reuse for a couple years in a row depending on the subject. A lot of times teachers will ask a student to bring in a new notebook for every subject that the child has, and some subjects require more writing in notebooks than others. And so at the end of the school year, sometimes I'll find only a handful of pieces of paper removed from a notebook. So to me, that's essentially a brand new notebook that I'm going to try to put into rotation again the following year. As I find the supplies that are needed for each child, I am going to put those directly into their backpacks so that they're set aside and set apart from everything else. And this will also get that stuff ready for when we do back to school night, and they can just grab their backpack and bring it with us when we go to that. All right, you probably get the general idea of how that process works for me. It does take quite a while to distribute all the different supplies throughout the different backpacks, but in the end, I'm left with only a handful of things I need to buy at the store, and so it's worth the effort for me. I'm not gonna take you through the entire process, but I did want to talk really quickly about lunch boxes. This is one area that I definitely needed to do a declutter. We have had free hot lunches at our school for the past 2 years. I think that was a program that was introduced through the entire United States, and so we haven't had to pack a cold lunch from home for over 2 years. And when I went to go look at our lunch boxes, they were in very rough shape. They had some rips, and I thought now is the perfect time to declutter those and pick up some new ones. So I did go ahead and purchase 3 new lunch boxes. They're just kind of a classic gray neutral color. I figure our kids can share these lunch boxes. We're going to give them the option to choose a couple, maybe 1 or 2 lunches per week from the cafeteria, and so if they are having a cold lunch, they'll bring these with them, and I wanted to keep it kind of basic so they could share these 3 lunch boxes. They look to be pretty durable and easy to clean, and I'm excited to put them to use this next school year. All right, moving on to the next category that I want to go through today, the clothing. I'm going to look into the dressers and the closets and just take a look to see if there's anything obvious that needs to be decluttered, if there are gaps in the wardrobes. I know a couple of my kids in particular did grow quite a bit this season, so I'll probably call them upstairs and have them try on or hold up some different clothing items to see if they need to have some replacements purchased, and just kind of do a general look through and declutter of their items. This is something I like to go through kids' clothing about 4 times a year, usually with season changes, and the beginning of the school year here in Minnesota does kind of correlate with the beginning of fall, and so it works out pretty perfectly to do just one last look through their clothes before school starts. I'm not sure exactly what it is that our youngest does, but she's constantly wearing holes in the knees of her tights, her stretch pants, and so I might need to start moving her to jean material pants because we can't keep paying for new pants all the time. All right, so let's just see if they, so let's see if you hold those up. Those are way too short. Oh my goodness. So those are gonna have to get passed
belly
out.
button.
Well, where would you wear them? Well, they have a big hole in them anyway. So those will probably have to get, those probably won't be good for school, but let's see what these ones look like. You grew a lot. Those ones won't fit you anymore. Those ones barely fit you last year, did they? Those won't fit. These ones should actually go in the chainsaw bin. Yeah. Don't you think?
I don't know.
Alright, so after going through the clothing of all 5 kids, I was able to come up with quite a few items that can be decluttered. I know there are a lot of families that like to do a big back to school shopping trip where they let each child pick out 2 or 3 new outfits, and that's a lot of fun. We personally do not do this. We tend to purchase items only when they are needed. And so for the items that got taken out, if there's any gaps in certain kids' wardrobes, we will go to local thrift stores and see if we can fill those gaps, and if not, we'll check online. And that process works really well for us. It helps keep us in check of how much clothing we have. We're not just purchasing something to purchase it, and we kind of know where we need to fill in those gaps. So that is what we'll be doing here going forward, and that should pretty much take care of all of our clothing needs for back to school. So let's talk a little bit about the final category that I'm going to go through today, and that is shoes. I did put them in a separate category for a reason, because we treat them a little bit differently in terms of how often we replace them or why we replace them. We have this awesome storage bench in our garage, and you may have seen the video previously where we redid this little corner of the garage to make a sort of mini mudroom area. And this bench has a spot. There are 3 cubbies for each person in our family, besides our oldest daughter, who does have a need to wear braces on her legs, and so she puts her shoes on right away in the morning, and it makes more sense for her to have her shoes up in her bedroom. So each of the rest of us has these 3 slots where we can put shoes. That doesn't necessarily mean that we each get only 3 pairs of shoes, because some of the shoes, if they're smaller, like sandals, we can fit 2 or 3 pairs per little cubby area, and so we are able to kind of customize it depending on our needs. The main thing I look for when it comes to back to school is that each of the kids has a nice pair of tennis shoes. And because we only purchase when we actually need something, our oldest 2, they have fairly good tennis shoes still, because theirs were purchased at the end of the spring of last school year. And so they are not worn out. They can wear them for back to school. Our youngest son, he had a pair of tennis shoes that was purchased for him by his grandparents. They were a little big at the time, and now his feet have grown enough to fit into. And so I'm just going to replace those tennis shoes for the other pair that he had been wearing, and we'll donate that pair. And our daughter, our youngest daughter, she could also use a new pair of shoes. Hers are looking pretty rough. Secondly, I look at the more casual shoes and the dress shoes and just see if they're worn out, if the bottoms are looking kind of slippery, if all of the grip has worn off, and I will again just look at replacing those pairs that need to be replaced. This shoe organizer really serves as a good container. It's a good boundary. If you saw my video about containers and boundaries and how they can help you stay really organized, this is our limit for how many shoes that we are keeping, and it just makes it really easy to keep that in check. While I'm out here in the garage, I also want to take a little time and sort through some of the items in the lockers. This area is really important for keeping our kids organized during the school year. They each have their own locker for their coat and backpack, and it's just so nice to have everything in one area right there by the car so that they can grab their stuff and hop in the car really quickly and easily on school mornings. Even though I'm making space for their backpacks and also a light coat for the fall, I also want to keep around a few of the summer items because the weather is still nice outside, and I imagine there will still be a few beach trips before school starts. Okay, well, I feel a lot better having all of those little tasks taken care of. I feel a little bit more prepared for school to start, though I'm not ready to give up summer quite yet. There are still 3 weeks or so, and I'm going to soak up every last second that I can. If you're getting ready for school, getting your kids ready for school, I hope that this video was motivational for you to maybe tackle some of those last minute odds and ends as well. And I hope that your kids have a really great start to the new school year. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope that you'll stop by the cottage again really soon.